Hey guys, it's Josh with Simplified Church. Hey, as we're all kind of facing this new reality of working remotely, our staff having to work from home and everything that goes around with a new reality that many of us may not be ready for or set up for, may have thought about and thought about testing, but now we're kind of forced to do this remote work. My team's been doing this for several years now, and we did a quick interview with my team to talk about the realities of working from home and what that looks like from the tools we use, their setups, but also some just realities of what it is like for them to be working in a remote environment. So got this video here. I want you to watch it. Check out the interview I did with my team members. Check it out. I hope it is a way that you can be more productive with your team and find ways that you can continue to do ministry even when we can't be together in the same room, in the same building, things like that, as we work remotely to do ministry better. We'll see you at the end of the video.
Hey guys, welcome. I just wanted to have a quick moment of this office hours. We're going to do a little different format. I'm going to interview a few people from my team here and really talk about working remotely. We know we're kind of in this time where we've all been forced to learn this new reality. So just so you know, my team at Simplify Church, where we do outsourced bookkeeping for churches, we've been working remotely for as long as the company's been around. So this whole new reality really was not even a bump in the road for us. Just a matter of the folks that do work here locally. I just told them, stay at home. And most of them had that flexibility already. So I want to introduce my team here. We have Kate Lutz and Brianne Henry and Sarah Soley that are all account managers with us. And we're just going to do kind of a round robin interview format to talk to them about their experiences working remotely and what that looks like, the reality of it, especially. With being stay-at-home moms, working from home, kids at home, all that fun stuff that goes into it. So we'll go from there. So Kate, we'll start with you. Just kind of introduce yourself and what did you do prior to working with us at Simplify Church?
Yeah, I'm Kate. I taught middle school math for 10 years in a public school setting before coming to Simplify. So I've done a drastic turnaround to standing on my feet all day for 10 hours and then now doing this. But
and your reality of working from home is you have a young daughter that is
yes.
with you most every day, correct?
Yeah, I have a 4-year-old who is with me. Well, now she's with me every day. Well, we had a little preschool break there for a while, but now the kids are in school, so she's with me every day. And it has its perks and, there's some downfalls too, but it's good.
Very cool. Brianne, tell us about your prior to Simplify Church and what reality is like for you now.
Prior to Simplify Church, I taught high school business for 4 years and then had about a year and a half off and then started here. Reality for me, I have a 6-year-old who's in kindergarten and a 3-year-old. So up until this start of the school year, I had 2 kids at home with me and then back to 2 kids at home with me right now. My 3-year-old doesn't go to preschool or anything, so she's here all day, every day with me.
Nice. And we can tell by the toys in the background that it's pretty prevalent for you.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So, and I forgot to say, so Kate, so we're located just outside of St. Louis where our company's located. Kate is pretty much here locally. She could get to the office in 10 to 15 minutes if she wanted to, but still works from home. We've just afforded her that opportunity. Brianne is a couple hours from the office in Central Illinois. But Sarah with us is a military spouse, and we love hiring military spouses because it just gives us a lot of good reasons to have long-term employees and things like that. So we have several. But Sarah is in New Jersey, correct? Yeah. So tell us what did you do prior, and what does your reality look like?
Well, so like you said, military spouse, so we move around all the time. We move just about every 2 years. So it's hard to get a job and keep a job anywhere. So I was kind of a professional volunteer for a long time. And I had a small cake business out of my house that I would make cakes and decorate and kind of do, and was able to be pretty successful at that. But then when we got the opportunity to join up with Simplify, I've been with the company for a year now. And it was just a really good opportunity for me to kind of use my gifts and my talents and a job that I'm able to work remotely at and go wherever we move. So.
And you've kind of seen both sides of the coin, because you were in the office for, I don't remember how long it was, 6 months, 8 months before you guys moved. So you've kind of seen both sides. So you can kind of speak to that from both sides of the equation of, I was in the office for a while and that was great. And then I was working from home for a while and that's great as well. So
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna skip. We kind of talked about, most of you answered the next question about how long you've been here, but so what does home office look like for each of you? I know there's not really a way that we can show what you're doing real easily without you picking up your laptop and being weird about that. But what does a home office look like? And I'll just kind of let you guys popcorn that as you want to chime in.
Well, you can see that my home office doubles as a toy room. So I have, actually, when we bought this house, we loved this house because it had this room and I was already working from home. And we thought, I can work up here and the kids can be up here at the same time, and it's separate from the rest of the house. So like I can shut the door, I can leave the room and leave work in that sense. So I have 2 screens, and I have a huge big Mac screen and then a second monitor. And then we pretty much just hang out in here during the day, have the toys, the TV for the kids, all the things. So my home office is also a toy room.
Yep.
I have my office in my living room right now, which I've moved it a couple times actually, just kind of depending on the season. I actually had it in the basement last winter because, the kids can't go outside. So put all the toys in the basement and had my office in the basement. And now it's upstairs in the living room. But yeah, I have 2 screens set up. I actually have a stand-up desk. Don't ask me how often I use it, okay? But I do have one. And it is nice to be able to just kind of lift it up and work for a little while and be on your feet instead of sitting. But keeping your office area separate from your home is probably one of the hardest things, but a pretty important thing. And I don't have that right now, and I'm leaning toward that as I as I get deeper into this. It's becoming very evident that it needs to happen. So
Yeah.
My office is, again, living room area, kind of the same. I primarily work off of 2 screens. I have 3 set up now just because we had an extra one. And so now I can throw more up, but really 2 screens is really all I really, really need. And yeah, I mean, being in the living area is good in some senses because you're able to be connected to stuff, especially if you have young kids for me, I'm right by a window that shows the outside, which is beautiful right now. And so that can bring in a little bit of joy and, break up the desk a little bit. And so that's good. But at the same time, sometimes you do need to be able to just shut it and not see it, because sometimes you'll walk by and be like, oh, I should check and see if I have any emails or anything going on. So you just kind of have to find your own balance with that, to be able to benefit from having it in a living space, but also not have it overrun your life.
Yeah, and I think you all have found that and are finding that that work-life balance is important. And when you're working from home, it becomes very difficult, especially just your body. I know there's been psychological studies done about how your brain identifies your location and what's being done. So if you're in a room or you're in a place, for people sometimes that spend too much time in their bedroom watching TV or doing whatever, then when it's time to go sleep, their brain can't shift to say, oh, it's sleep time, and they end up with sleep problems. Our bodies definitely become very cognizant of where we're at and what we're supposed to be doing in that location, and that can have an effect on things. I don't think people realize that there are some differences in working from home. For me, I know, I've worked from home in the past, and having this company affords me that opportunity. But then we maintain an office, and there's an expense to maintain that office. Do we need that expense to operate this company? And the answer is no, we don't. But I just know, for me personally, that has been a benefit, that I get up, I leave the house, and I go to an office sometimes. So there's some value in that. But then it's also good to have the flexibility of working from home. So with that said, for you guys are the biggest benefits of being able to work from home? Some of them will be obvious, but.
Well, I think an obvious one for all three of us is that we can be at home with our kids.
Yeah.
So it's hard, and my kids are being probably the worst that they have been in this whole quarantine time right now. So anyway, thanks guys. But the benefits of just, not having to pay for daycare, being able to be at home with your kids all while continuing to work is probably one of the biggest for our family. We also have moved, and Sarah has also moved, and you don't have to worry about finding a new job. So I was local for the first year and a half or so that I worked, and I came to the office once a week until I had Becca, and then we moved, and I didn't have to worry about finding a new job or fear of anything changing because I was already used to working mostly from home.
Yeah.
I would say, obviously, that being home with the kids, and for me, it's just a kid, but regardless, it is, it's important to be there during that time when most people have to pay for daycare or have to find someone else or worry about finding a sitter or, but that would be a big benefit. I also think that, now we don't really see it much because we're stuck inside the house, but just picking up my computer and running to Starbucks just to get out, or running to somewhere that if there's internet, then I'm free to go there as long as I can work in that environment, which most of the time I can. I think that just being able to go to my sister's for the weekend and still get my work done, that's been one of those priceless things that I realized after I worked here for a while, that I don't have my work from home, but I also can have a little freedom, to do things here and there. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even traveling, like you can work from the car, you can work from a hotel, you can work from wherever. And that obviously is going to give you a benefit because you're able to move around. You're able to kind of work goes wherever you go instead of being stuck in one place. Obviously a benefit. I think right now, most people who are working from home, this is not going to be a long-term thing for them. And so I think the benefit right now that people can see is that they're still able to work. When they are able to work at home, they still have a job, where a lot of people are not in that boat. And so I think that's a big benefit for people in this time right now.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things I think is going to come out of this is some churches, small businesses are going to see the reality that this is feasible and this is doable, where maybe they were fearful of even testing it in the past, and now they've kind of been forced to test it. And I think there could come out of it. So that being said, I'm going to skip ahead on the questions that we have here. And because I know there's going to be some guys that are in the back of their mind or on the forefront of their mind, and we'll talk about the elephant in the room and talk about accountability. Because I know that church leaders, pastors, business leaders, whomever is thinking about this remote work is going to say, oh, we can't have people working from home because we can't supervise, we can't control, we can't oversee what they're doing. And I will say, so we put out a blog post, it launched today. And in that blog post, I approached the accountability thing. And really accountability goes away from managing people and goes back to hiring good people. Most companies that struggle with that fear of people working remotely don't have an accountability problem. They have a hiring problem. If you hire good people, you don't have an accountability problem. And I've been bit myself. I'll admit it. There have been people that have taken advantage of what we do here, but we do have accountability in place where we can watch and the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. I mean, we're going to see the projects completed. We're going to see the reports getting out. We're going to see that stuff's done on a timely fashion. I've told every one of you from the get-go that I call it the Google method. I don't know if it's the Google method or not, but that's what I call it. That I really honestly believe in hire good people, give them the tools that they need to do their job, and get out of their way. We're all adults. We can make adult decisions. And when you need to have more accountability put on you, we can go there. But we don't want to. And so far it's worked very well. That I think most people have a work ethic about them where, you give them the flexibility, they're going to use it. Now, some can't, or some can't. When you move from a physical office environment to a remote office environment, there's that dichotomy there. Like I said, even at working from home, it's real easy to see the dishes in the dishwasher, or the carpet that needs vacuumed, or whatever needs to be done, or just look outside. Oh, it'd be nice to go take a walk right now, and have that self-discipline. So talk to that. What do you put in place for yourself to kind of create that discipline to know when it's work time and when it's okay for flex time and stuff like that?
I'll be honest that I thought that was going to be harder for me to work to get the, let's say, hours in, if you have that, or get the project done. But I think because of the benefits of working from home are so good, some of the things that we talked about earlier, that I find myself probably working more than I would if I was in an office, honestly, because I don't want to underperform, since what we have here in this setting, this work from home remote situation, is so beneficial to my family and me that there's no way I want to mess it up.
Yeah.
I really, and I think that speaks volumes for not having to worry about your accountability with, if you provide the environment that's, like you said, the Google mentality or whatever. If you provide that for them, they're probably going to give you more than you expect.
Yeah.
And I would say that, you got to get on yourself once in a while. Like, oh, it's Friday. It's noon on Friday. Do I have all my work done?
Yeah.
But I find myself sometimes, if I don't get the hours in during the day, then on Saturday afternoon while the kid's napping, I come online and do more work. It doesn't always coincide with all of my coworkers. It doesn't, but the work gets done when it needs to get done.
Sure. So. Yeah.
I think we generally try to keep pretty good, consistent office hours where we're all kind of working. But sometimes if you have something come up, like let's say something you need to go do something, you have an appointment, or it is a nice day and you want to go take a walk, because that's important, especially right now. You can do that, and then just just add that time on, and either in the evening, or you work later in the afternoon, or as long as you get your work done. But really that goes back to for companies to have clear expectations for their employees so that they know what they need to get done. So like, I think we all know we have, what are our weekly tasks? What are our, monthly tasks? What are our long-term goals? Having stuff like that helps us to know kind of where we are and gauge if we are, like, what is getting your work done. We need to make sure that everybody knows and is on the same page with that, so that you can't just give it to them and say, okay, this is what I expect you to do, go do it. And that's that Google mentality. But having those clear expectations, I think, is important, so that you don't feel like they're not doing it, but you don't know how to approach telling them that they're not getting their stuff done. If you have it set out, then you can kind of set it and forget it.
Exactly. Yeah, and you made a great point that I didn't even address in the questions, but you're spot on about setting clear expectations up front. That's not just remote work. That's pretty much that's managerial 101 or leading people 101. Give as clear expectations as you can, because even if you're in a friendship relationship going into working together, lay it out. It's just too many times, even when you're friends, you guys, there's enough difference in your expectations that eventually it's going to cause a problem. Yeah, the more you can put out on the front end. Here's what needs to get done. Do we understand? Okay, good. Now, outside of that is your gray area. And I'll admit too, I tell people, I think I hire OCD workaholics, but it's the reality of it. I think there's that piece of it, but then there's also the piece that I do have the flexibility, and sometimes I don't have time to micromanage people, what it comes down to. So, I say, if you need to take the kids to a doctor, take the kids to a doctor. Or if you get a call from the school that the kid's sick, go pick them up. You can make those hours up in the evening. The stuff we do has some time sensitivity to it, but not so much that it has to be done this hour, where there's some flexibility for sure.
I think one thing for me that I have learned I just celebrated 4 years of being here, is time blocking. And so and my kids are used to this by now. Like, they know that I work in the morning and then I work right after lunch. So I'm just part-time. And so I don't work as much as some of the other people. But like you said, there are clear expectations of things that we have to get done in the mornings. And so I know that from 8 to 10 or a little bit after 10, like, that's work time. And my kids, like, as soon as we finish breakfast, like, they automatically come up here, and they've just been trained, I guess, to know that. And then as soon as we finish lunch, they come back up here. And then one thing that I've been working on, I realized I had my email on my phone. I had our messaging stuff on my phone. I had our portal on my phone. And I'd be on the walks with the kids, or, picking up, standing out, waiting for Cooper to get off the bus, or like whatever. And I'm just checking it. And I was like, I am working way more than what I'm supposed to be, working. Mm-hmm. And so I have set in some boundaries. So I think for the people that are new to working at home, especially pastors, I'm married to a pastor. So I know that it's not like you work from 8 to 4 and you're done. Like, set up some time, like maybe from 8 until 10, you answer emails or you're calling people, and then you take a break for a little while, especially if you're at home with the rest of your family. Spend time with your family. This is only a temporary thing. And then you're going to be back in the office, and you're going to have a million events coming up, and you're going to be doing all the things. So make sure that you are also appreciating this time at home and taking time to spend with your family, and not holding yourself up in an office all day long. And then, come back later in the afternoon and do some more work or whatever. Like, you don't have to work all day long like you would if you're in the office. Like, you've got to give yourself some grace. Mm-hmm. And then if you're an employer, you've got to give your employees some grace. If you're struggling with working from home, you can be rest assured that your employees are like, what in the world am I doing right now as well? So give one another some grace.
Yeah, you're spot on there as well. Because there is that, especially with time blocking and knowing when. I learned that as well myself. There was a time where I had my email dinging on my phone every time it came in. And I can remember a couple years ago, even now, I went on vacation and I turned off the notifications. And just so happened, I never turned them back on. And I was scared prior to that to turn it off. So being on vacation kind of forced me to turn it off, and I realized I can live without email notifications all the time. And there is that, when you get into setting yourself time, every time management guru and their brother is going to tell you that, don't sit there on your email all day long. Don't respond within 5 minutes. Because the other reality is people become conditioned, and they go, oh, I know if I email her, she'll respond within 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden you don't, and they start to go, what happened? It took her 20. Oh my goodness. So yeah, it's definitely that thing. What would you say is the biggest hassle working from home? What are those things that you don't like about
it? My children.
Wow.
No, just it's really hard to focus. Yeah. I try to always push my clients to go to email first. Anytime I have a call with a client, I always preface it with, by the way, I have children in the room with me. I tell them their ages, which pretty much all of my clients know by now. I've had all my clients for a while, so they understand. But, I just try to warn them up front. I work from home. I have kids. Expect noise. Yeah. They're little and they do a really good job, but some days are harder than others. And then I think just also the ability to turn it off and walk away. When you work in an office, you go home And typically you don't see work until the next day or over the weekend. Whereas when it's right here in your house, if the kids want to come up and play on Saturday or Sunday, I have a hard time not like, I should hop on that computer right there and check my email or do something that I forgot to do, or, work on something that I missed, so it is really hard, and you have to be really disciplined to separate yourself from that.
Yeah.
Is I would say is probably one of the hardest things, just not working all the time.
Yep.
I would just
Kate or
piggyback
Sarah?
that.
What's that?
I would piggyback that.
Yeah.
With the time management, keeping it separate is, I would say, the hardest part.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the kind of obvious, but maybe doesn't get thought about is, there are times where we have internet issues,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure I would call it a hassle, more than an inconvenience, but like, you kind of are stuck at the mercy of your internet service at that time.
First world
So,
problems, right? First world problems, right?
I know. So, and everything's slowed down right now, as we all know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really that between the kids and if you have kids, if you don't, then it's really just time management and making sure you don't work too much. I find myself only checking my email twice a day, morning or when I first get to work, and then before I leave work.
Well, and you guys are hitting on key points that we've learned over time. And all three of you don't necessarily have the setup that even makes, because what we've learned, the best solution for that work-life balance is to have a separate room for your work, where you can close the door and then you don't look at it. Because right now, and everybody that's worked for me has always told me the exact same thing. When it's where I can see it, I walk by it and I remember, oh, I have to send that email still, or I have to check that email, or I still need that report to get out, or whatever. Big kids walking by the cameras. So, there's this, when you see it and you're an OCD workaholic to begin with, there's that prompt of, oh, I can do it. Whereas, if you are able to close the door or have it somewhere where it's not in regular view, there's a relative expectation that you can tune it out, so to speak. And that becomes difficult. So absolutely. Yeah, it's tough. So, we're getting pretty long here, but so I just want to talk real quick about the tools that we use, and that, and obviously within remote there's a lot this business didn't exist 15 years ago because the tools weren't available to make it happen in the remote capacity that we do what we do. But let's speak to that just a little bit in what we do. We have recently moved to Microsoft Teams as a kind of a live chat feature, and that helps to work on a virtual communication. We use Slack right before that, which honestly, they're lateral tools. There really isn't an advantage to one over the other. I think for us, the move was because we already used Office 365 for everything else, it just made sense. Since we're already paying for it, we might as well use it, even though we weren't paying for Slack either, but because it's a free tool. But speak to that a little bit. What is it like using, what are the benefits of having that type of tool in place? And how does that help kind of keep your daily roles going?
I like that at least with Microsoft, you have Teams, you have Excel, you have Word, you have your calendar, you have Outlook. All of them work together seamlessly.
Yeah.
And I get an email when you want to have an event in a calendar, and I can RSVP to that, and I know, and who's coming, and it pops up as a reminder. It just all flows together nicely. I do like that part of it. I really do. You don't have to have a bunch of systems in place to explain to your employees or whatever.
It is, and there are so many out there, and this one's free, and this one's $5 a month, and this one's $14.97 a month, and whatever, and you can nickel and dime yourself into subscription payments that before you know it, you got a couple $100 on 3 different systems, and there's some overlap in them even. So do you really need them all? Yeah. So Sarah, how does Teams and Slack before that, how does that benefit you on a daily basis?
Well, it definitely helps to stay connected with people. And the way that we work here at Simplify, we have our teams of people. So then I'm able to stay connected with my team on, kind of behind the scenes stuff that maybe, doesn't need to be communicated to everybody, but it is where I'm able to kind of connect with everybody at the same time too. But for me, that's another one of the challenges of working from home, because it's easy for me to just put my head down and work, and then
Yeah.
like check that stuff later.
Right.
And then I catch up on everybody's stuff kind of late. And so that's a challenge for me as a remote person.
It's true. And there's a few of you that I know that, I'm like, well, I have a message. I'll just have to wait a little bit longer for the response than some others. But the reality is the Teams, Slack, whatever tool you're using, it's an email replacement. And it makes it a lot simpler and a lot quicker, a lot more real time than, looking at 50 emails in your inbox about one conversation and having to decipher back up through that conversation what's really going on. So that's cool. Brianne, how about you? What does Teams instant chat stuff work for you?
Well, like everybody said, it helps me to stay connected for sure. And it also, as a remote worker, employee, one of the hard things is that you don't work in an office and you don't have, office relationships. And so even just one positive is just sharing things that are not even work related, just we have like a line called like the water cooler where, especially recently, it's been more of like prayer requests for, with all this stuff going on, just some of our people have family members that work in hospitals or whatever, and just able to like serve and love one another beyond work, which also happens in a real office. So like that is one benefit where it is used for work, and like that's how we stay current, and that's how we keep up with our teams, and that's how we keep one another accountable, keeping all these systems going and checking the things and moving the Trello cards, and all the things. But it also gives us an opportunity to build relationships with our coworkers that you might be missing if you didn't have that communication piece. If it was just sit down, take care of your clients, submit your work or whatever, and you didn't have that ability to communicate, then I think it would be even harder, because I truly like coming to work because I do get to talk to my coworkers. And as someone who's home with her kids all the time, and like my little bubble is very small of people that I communicate with, especially right now, with not being able to do the church stuff and all that. So I think not only is it good for keeping people accountable and connected for work, but also just giving your employees an opportunity to build a relationship beyond just work, just like you would if you were in an office.
It is for sure, and I think, with the current situation, everybody's kind of been forced over to the video conferencing. I mean, we're using Zoom for this, so we have Zoom and within Teams, and I believe there's a system within Slack as well. But within Teams, I know there's a video chat meeting that you one click button and you're talking to that person live, camera to camera, and that's helpful. Sometimes, could we all make phone calls? Sure, but sometimes it's just nice to see the other person's face. And it adds a little different element, especially when you're working remotely, to not feel so isolated and stuff like that. So, hey, I put a link, or I put a listing of all the tools that we use at Simplify to kind of keep connected, and that it's in the blog post. If you go to learn.simplifychurch.com, kind of detailed everything out that we use, the free tools plus the paid tools, and what we have liked, don't like about them, why we use the ones we use, and but as a pastor, if you're hearing this, I would recommend keep things on the KISS principle. Keep it simple. We won't talk about the last acronym, but just keep it simple. You don't need 5 different tools to do stuff. A lot of times one will suffice it if it gets the job done and it gets your team connected. So what, as we close down here, I'd like to hear from each of you. What would be your biggest suggestion to a remote worker just getting started on how they can be most successful? Don't all speak up at once.
Can you repeat the questions? My children are yelling.
Jeopardy. What would you suggest to a person just getting started or that is new to the remote work environment on your best advice to be successful in that situation?
I would say know your expectations, and if you don't know, ask. What do you want me to do? What am I supposed to be getting done? if you don't know. I mean, it's probably going to be similar to what you already do in the office, just at home. But
Right.
if you have any questions, ask up front so that you know you're set to go from the beginning.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's good.
I think that knowing, is this an email or is this a message on Teams or on Slack? Is this something I should email about, or is this something that I think maybe having expectations on that,
Yeah.
whether it's within your team or a manager or pastor or your boss, knowing what is appropriate to email and what's appropriate to message, and I think that's a good thing to know, because you don't. I feel like not knowing whether or not I'm bothering somebody, even though it's work and I shouldn't
Yeah.
feel that way. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to bother them right now. This is probably not that important. Well, just don't be afraid to ask questions to know
Yeah,
what you should do and where you should be.
for sure. Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, I think knowing the expectations and even knowing like what times you're expected to get things done, because if you're at home with other people, then things are going to happen and interruptions are going to happen, like right now. And then also just giving yourself grace, just back to giving yourself grace and being flexible and knowing that it's something that it changes. I mean, my schedule and the way I get things done and the flow that I have changes as my kids grow and change, or it might change as this virus stuff, how long we're at home, who's at home, how long your kids, if you're a pastor and you have kids who are not in school, how long they might be home. And so I think just remembering that it's something that's going to ebb and flow. Like, it's not going to always look the same all the time, every day. Like, it's different every day, because the people in your home are also, you need to account for them, and they have different things going on every day. So know your expectations, give yourself some grace, be flexible, and remember that you're probably, once you get used to doing things a certain way, you're probably going to have to shift it because something's going to change.
I think that's the inevitable about this, and especially in the work from home environment, that you just have to be flexible. Something's going to happen. Whether it's personally, the house, kids, whatever, just has to happen. Or then within the work environment, something's going to come up. And you may have to include a coworker or a teammate on that, what you're doing. So it is. Those are great advice. And I will say, from the other side of that curtain, as the boss, I hate that word, but leading the organization, I find I have to over communicate a lot of times, and I don't always do that very well. So I fail there constantly in letting people know what's going on and keeping people in the loop. It's very important. Sarah alluded to knowing your expectations. It's very important as the leader to always set those expectations. And sometimes you can't set them and forget them. Sometimes you have to set them and then keep reiterating them or renew that, whatever that needs to happen on the new expectations, as things are in that flex time of going. The other thing I find is difficult as the leader. Unfortunately, you sometimes run in a virtual environment, out of sight, out of mind. Those of you that have smaller teams, that may not be as big of an issue. I have a team of 17. So you get past that 10 to 12 number, it gets difficult, unfortunately. So I hope I'm not breaking any news to you guys that, sometimes I don't communicate just because.
You mean that you don't actually know what we're doing or where we are?
Oh my goodness. No, I don't. And guess what? This worked. So,
It does.
but yeah, it's difficult. So you really have to be intentional. For me, in the national capacity that we work in, I have to do the map in my brain to just make sure I've remembered everybody, and I kind of go through the states. I mean, we've got New Jersey to Alaska, where I've got people that work for us. So always trying to remember, always trying to check in. Luckily, I've got team leaders that keep that check-in going. And so I'm getting to the point where I only have to check in with 4 or 5 people. So that makes it a little easier, a little more incentive. So church pastor, as you're seeing this and viewing this, just know that it's possible for a 2 to 3 person team, but it's also possible for your 50 to 75 person. Wherever you need to be in that, this is all doable. It may just require a little more thought on your part and a little more intentionality and a little more time, unfortunately, but that's where you're at as a leader. You may have to delegate some of the busy work that you do so that you can spend time just investing in people virtually, like we do here. So any final thoughts that you guys have as we kind of shut things down? No?
Hang
Okay.
in,
What's that?
hang in there. You can do
There-
it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get through it. Some, like I said, I think a lot of people are going to learn that because we were forced to test working remotely. I think a lot of people are going to learn that it is very feasible, and it's actually doable. And in many cases, it might actually be more efficient for your organization, as we get into that. So thank you guys for your time. We will look forward to kind of doing this again as we dive in a little bit deeper, but this was great. Hopefully we can we serve some churches through this. So thanks for your time. See you guys.
Hey guys, I hope that video was helpful for you. And the interviews, the information we gave was of some value for your church and your ministry, so that you can tell that working from home, being a remote workforce, is doable. I think one of the things that we're going to see come out of this is a realization for a number of small businesses, churches, ministries are going to realize that working in a remote capacity is very doable, and does a lot of benefit to the ministry and what they're able to do to provide some benefits to their workers especially. So hope that was helpful. Again, I'm Josh with Simplified Church. We'd love to help your church with anything we can do, be that from a technology standpoint, but more importantly from a finance management, bookkeeping, outsourcing of that, and also from an online giving perspective. Is there anything we can do to serve your church? We'd love to be here to help. Thanks so much.